How's the lighting in here? You like this lamp lit vibes? Is good for everyone? We need ushers with flashlights, I feel like, but otherwise we're pretty good. And those little like red hats with the tassel on them. There's probably some upstairs somewhere. We found the old offering plates. Did you guys grow up going to church? Do you remember the little velvet pouches that have like a wooden handle sticking off each side? We have some of those. Better watch out. We'll start using them. It always seemed so high pressure, even when I was a kid. I remember seeing it come down and people going through their pocket trying to find some cash to put in there and stuff, and you hand it to your neighbor. Here you are, Carl. They're just passing it today? Okay. I don't know. But maybe they never had to have we're 2/3 funded talk. I don't know. There's always a trade-off, no matter what you do. Hey, if you go on Spotify or Apple Music or wherever you get your tunes, and you look up Corey Kilgannon, that guy that was just sitting over there, there's a new single out, Corey Kilgannon and Divine Family Band. It's called It Is Well. You can find it anywhere you look for music. It was recorded upstairs in Corey's little studio that he made and what used to be I'd call it haunted. I'm pretty sure it was haunted, like air conditioner handling room upstairs there where no one dared tread. And Corey prayerfully sat up there in the dark for hours on end, learning to pray and I think transforming the space in some way. And recording a song up there with people that you normally see singing, and then also just like a random collection of like 20 folks that were just leaving after church on a Sunday. He had us come upstairs and made a choir of us. And so just check the tune out. Turned out good. Yeah, that's the end of my commercial there. I feel like it's the beginning of a podcast, and the person's like reading the script from the reason I use Dr. Scholl's is because it helps me personally with my posture. Okay. All right. We are going to continue in this. This will be part 3 of a little side endeavor of a series. We're looking at the vision and values of this here community, the Vine. And let's see here. Okay, so there they are. Pop quiz. So where did these concepts come from? Does anybody remember? It's in the Bible. Anybody remember what's that? I hear a lot. Yeah. Yeah. The Shema. Yeah, that's right. Shazam. It's the Shema. The Shema, which is this ancient Hebrew prayer that is still prayed by observant Jews to this day, twice a day, the morning and then the evening, as a reminder of who God is, who we are in light of this, and also what it is that we've been set on this planet to learn or to do. And Shema is a virtually untranslatable word that says listen in most of our Bibles, but it's the closest thing the Hebrew language has to a word for obey. There is no word that translates to obey, which is odd, I think, for the people of a religion that developed 660 plus laws for coming home to God, that with all these laws and rules, there's no word that means obey. There's this word, Shema, that means listen, which means like remember, internalize, respond, wake up, hear, and act simultaneously. The prayer says, Shema, listen, hear, O Israel. The Lord is one. God is one. So you be one also by loving the Lord with all your heart, with all your mind, and with all your strength. Gather all of these energies that push and pull us out and all directions so often. Just bring all of that home here. Love the Lord with all of yourself, and love your neighbor as yourself, Jesus added, as an extension of your own being. One another, one is a verb. So last week we looked at that first God is one value, and we introduced a practice called Let It Happen. And if you missed last week's teaching, it's up on YouTube. You can find it. And this morning we're going to look at a second value, this one, be at one, and introduce a practice called Watch Yourself. Watch yourself. So we're going to move into the choose your own main point portion of this morning, where I'm going to read 4 quotes, and I will tell you this, the main point that I'm trying to get across is somewhere in these quotes. Find it if you need a main point. Some of us don't need a main point. For some of us, it's very helpful. If you need a main point, I'm not going to tell you what it is, but you will recognize it. And when you do, keep it. This is my compromise. Simone Weil. We cure our faults by attention, not by our will. Attention, taken to the highest degree, is the same thing as prayer. Absolutely unmixed attention is prayer. It's T.S. Eliot. Teach us to care and not to care. Teach us to sit still. Second Corinthians 13. Examine yourselves. Watch yourself. Take a long and honest look at what you think you believe about who you think that you are. Do not look away until you see the face of Christ reflected back to you. This is the test. Do not look away. And here's a little poem called Clearing. Do not try to save the whole world or do anything grandiose. Instead, create a clearing in the dense forest of your life and wait there patiently until the song that is your life falls into your own cupped hands and you recognize and greet it. Only then will you know how to give yourself to this world so worthy of rescue. Do not try to save the whole world or do anything grandiose. What do you hear in there? Would anybody like to offer a reflection of what you hear? What stands out?
Make room. Don't go looking for it, but make room and wait for it, and you'll find it.
Make room. Don't go chasing waterfalls. Yeah, it begins with the individual, and there has to be some trust that the change that we desire for the whole world, for the collective, is best served by who to be the change, you know? Who's this that says that? Is that Gandhi? Be the change you wish to see in the world.
I
That's good. She said she was reading a parenting book. She gave the example, if you really want your child to have a love for reading, the best way to help that begin and grow is to, have a love for reading yourself and let them see. Oh, there's a great line, Blue Like Jazz. Remember that Christian classic, Donald Miller? Where he says, I never used to like jazz because jazz music doesn't resolve. And then he tells the story of seeing somebody, I think his dad, just loving jazz music. And something about seeing somebody else in the act of love taught him how to love himself. Okay, cool. Got your main point? You ready? Got it? Hold on tight. Here we go. Jesus, Joshua, Yeshua, as far as we can tell, was an actual person who lived a couple thousand years ago. He was not the founder of Christianity. If you just take a look at his life and words, it really doesn't seem like he was trying to start a new religion. He wasn't the first Christian. He came from a tradition, a religious tradition, that he was not only deeply rooted in, but so in love with or concerned for that he risked his life and actually lost it in an attempt to reform his own tradition. So we're a couple thousand years away from the man and his words, and I don't know how many of us grew up in this room observant Jews. There may be more of us than I would guess, but for most of us, we didn't. And so what we have to be mindful of is living in the waning years of the Christian empire. We've all been influenced by ideas about Christianity that, for a whole variety of reasons that I don't know, don't have time to try to figure out, have kind of separated Jesus, the man, the historical figure, from the tradition that he was a part of. And if we want to truly follow in the way of the Master, then it seems wise to have some kind of understanding of the tradition that he came from and continued to communicate from. And so in the language of Jesus' native tradition, Judaism, there are at least 5 different words for what gets translated in our Bibles as prayer. And in the Hebrew scriptures, tefillah, which we've talked about this before, it's the most commonly repeated, it's the most often used word for prayer, far and away. It's like 3 times more than the other 4 words combined, tefillah. And if you look through this little translation maze that I've made here for us, we see that when you get down to the root of the word, tefillah, prayer, means to judge oneself. And so for Jesus, the tradition he came from, there's a recognition that learning to observe ourselves is prayer. It's this prayer of self-evaluation. And I've learned a lot about its benefits in my life. What about you guys? What good has come if you've ever endeavored to, spy on yourself?
You don't have to stop and pray.
Okay, yeah, go to that next slide. This was always this was probably my least favorite Bible verse for most of my life. I thought, pray without ceasing. I can barely get started. Yeah, and there's something about observing prayer as the tefillah, this self-observation, as it's like a movable prayer. Oh, that's good. Yeah. She said, what this prayer is like this focused attention, and when we're consistently paying attention to ourselves, then this is maybe a helpful place for this ongoing conversation with God, to where we are working on the illusion of separateness, where God is out here, over there, somewhere. It's this invitation to observe our life together. And it's wild what changes in observation. It freaked Einstein out. You know, the little spooky action at a distance, you know, the way particles, quantum physics, these particles move only when they are not being observed. When they are, I don't know how they figured this out. They are. I like to mention quantum physics from time to time so that you guys think that I'm smart and broadly read. But really, have you guys quantum physics? So prayer is approached as a practice of attentiveness and awareness has helped me, at least, make peace with Paul's imperative that we pray without ceasing. It's made it actually feasible, but definitely not comfortable. When Jesus' disciples came to him one time and asked him to teach them how to pray, in Matthew's gospel, Jesus is recorded as responding, "As for you, when you pray, go into your inner room, close your door, same word for opportunity, and pray to your Father who's in secret." You don't have to heap up empty phrases. For your Father knows what you need before you ever even ask. I think it's normal and even healthy at certain times to approach prayer as in a discursive way. It's kind of like a conversation where God is something like a friend or a divine therapist. Like a safe place to air our grievances and maybe begin to experience something like solidarity, feel understood. But if we aren't careful, we can stall out in this stage, and the most potentially life-altering practice that we can engage with is prayer. It can become just another place to hide from the truth of ourselves beneath a firewall of questions and complaints and requests. This is how the ancient Hebrew poet David described this practice of prayer. We'll just pause after this for a moment. We'll pause and then anyone can reflect what you'd like. This is Psalm 139. David said, "Reveal, O God, reveal my innermost being. Test me and disclose my anxious thoughts. Show me the idols that I've made of my suffering, and lead me always along the way everlasting." This Hebrew word for idol there, it's a funny word. It appears a handful of times, and it can be translated as idol, and it can be translated as suffering. So it's a little poetic turn of phrase to reveal that we do indeed make idols out of our suffering. Have you noticed this about yourself? You have any little internal monuments to the things that you've been through? Light a candle before it every morning. Feel haunted by it. And David's approach to this reality is to invite and to welcome an honest reckoning. Reveal, help me to see my innermost being, the truth of who I am, the truth of who you are, somehow is shrouded or clouded by all of these other habits and ideas and thought loops and emotions and biological inherited patterns and wants and desires. It's like a snow globe that's all stirred up. You shake it good enough and you can't see the little village that's down at the center of the globe anymore. And the only thing that can help us to see clearly what's actually within us is to become still enough to allow it all to settle. So, watch yourself. That's the practice. Become familiar with the things you're attracted to and the things that you loathe. Those are really good indicators. The stronger the desire towards or away is a pretty good place to recognize that you're stuck. The impulses and the patterns and the self-identification shortcuts. I remember I had an existential crisis in my closet one time because I was flipping through all my band t-shirts and I was like, what? You are really determined to make sure that people know that you are an indie rock music fan. I mean, really, and it kind of just like spun out from there. I'm like, I have to be more than just a bundle of preferences, right? Just a bouncing bundle of preferences. Another really good place to notice from is the built-in defense mechanisms, when someone pokes you in a way that immediately triggers the alarm. And all logic and reason go out the window and there's nothing to do but talk until you see it my way. You know that? So this kind of prayer is risky business unless it's undertaken from the perspective of God. Does that sound crazy? Unless we somehow can undertake this work from God's perspective and not just from ours, then all watching ourselves will do is trigger this deeply felt and heavily conditioned impulse to self-loathing, to judge ourselves harshly. There's a reason that our psyche has developed a remarkably effective coping mechanism that we call self-deception. There's a reason that we've been able to or have had the experience of these things being hidden from our conscious awareness for a really long time. Because to come into contact with our shadow material is to risk the full collapse of our self-perception and potentially the entire life that we built around it. What do you think of that? Do you hear? Yeah, you may notice that when you go to take a look inside, it does seem that there are just all kinds of things trying to keep us from that practice. Things inside and things around us. And then there's the evidence of actually practicing this and discovering how much it hurts to uncover some things inside of ourselves that we first truly thought weren't there, and then really hoped weren't there, and then thought, how do I get this out of here? And then, it's
Humbling in a way too, that it, like messes up my illusions of myself. Even in the image of the air, like he's painting himself without glasses, but he has glasses.
interesting. Interesting. Yeah. So the benefit, right, is that it can help us. It's humbling, and it can help with some of this self delusion. And so what do we do then if and when this does stir up some experience of self-loathing? Do you ever get somewhere and you think, I've gone too far to go back where I was, and I'm so uncomfortable where I am that I don't want to learn the lesson anymore, and I can't quite tell where I'm going. You ever been there? The wasteland, the stuck between stations, the fuzz on the AM radio. It's like the goo, the caterpillar is just goo. He don't get in there and just get some wings installed. It's full system meltdown.
I was going to say, I think the welcoming prayer that you made mention of in the last couple of weeks is the key. I accept the thoughts, feelings, and emotions about people as well as myself. You will deny, you will find you. We have to accept all those things. I can identify with each of those. The best thing I can do is just not accept, welcome that somehow to my healing. Those are there, and just accepting them, I'll be more able to heal all of them.
Yeah, transformation begins with acceptance. And life just seems to keep presenting opportunities for us to be tested in this way and to see how much of what is happening can I accept. And can I accept myself in my inability to accept what I feel like I should be accepting? I really do think that part of the point of this prayer is to lead us to the place of self-collapse. I think that if we look at the life of Jesus and his core teachings, he does point to this being the path, the only way forward. The only way to resurrection is through death. There's no shortcuts. You can't tunnel underneath the cross. It says, whoever clings to their life exactly as it is will lose that very life. But if you let it go, then you'll have it forever. It's real and eternal. St. Paul said, if you live only to satisfy what's temporary nature, then you're just going to lose everything, because it's the ultimate statistic. 1 out of 1 die. So tend only to what's temporary and you'll lose everything. But if by the Spirit you put to death these urges, then you'll come to life. And what does it mean that the heart of Jesus' paradigm can be summarized not in a declaration of triumph, but in this whimper that's not my will, but yours be done? Surrender. The key verse said, examine yourselves, see if you're in the faith. And if we are indeed in the faith, then we should expect that everything in life will finally go smoothly. That's a sales pitch. If we're truly in the faith, then we should expect that our life should in some way resemble Jesus, who for the joy set before him, endured the cross and said to each and every one of us that would hope to follow, pick up your cross daily, surrender, follow me, become like me. Which means to welcome in whatever way we can circumstances, situations, and internal recognition events that break the will. Through the cracks in the will, there begins to arrive what the scriptures call the mind of Christ. So central to Christianity is the notion that Jesus is the image of the invisible God. in whom the fullness of God was pleased to dwell in bodily form. So, if we want to know what God is like, Christianity says, then we should look to Jesus. So as we go about the challenging work of spying on ourselves, and we begin to encounter the things about ourselves that are scandalous enough to be hidden from our conscious awareness, we may naturally begin to judge ourselves harshly. And so we must consistently remind ourselves until we actually begin to see, to know, to feel that though we may judge ourselves harshly, Christ judges no one. See with Christ, see through Christ, and cultivate what's been called an attentive indifference, or a compassionate awareness. Watch yourself. Truly see yourself, as much of yourself as you can handle. And love anyway. I have a quick epilogue, all right? This little epilogue is called Ah, Sweet Solitude. I can't tell if that cave is his imagination, like where Yoda sends Luke, or something that he's actually fleeing. This is St. Anthony. He's probably the most famous of the desert mothers and fathers who were Christian monastics who lived in the 3rd and 4th centuries. And when Rome adopted Christianity as the state empire, most of the long persecuted Christians rejoiced, except for the desert fathers and mothers who thought this is not a good sign, and they got out of town and went to the desert. And they founded these tiny monastic communities in extremely harsh and remote conditions. And they viewed solitude as a means to extricate themselves from a decadent state's constant barrage of distractions. Does that sound familiar? You ever wish you could just crawl in a cave for a little while? It's election season. If ever we felt this, it should be now.
Let me know when it's safe to come out.
Well, okay, hold on. Here's a plot twist. What they quickly discovered in solitary places was that the inner life was every bit as noisy and distracting as the cities that they'd fled. And in solitude, you can go to that next one, the interior thought loops that had gone largely unnoticed in the busyness of the town square was brought into awareness and was discovered to be actually the source of all of life's anxieties. It's an inside job. This feedback loop, it's always looking outside of itself for validation, for security, for peace, for God. Ah, sweet solitude. And they left for us, these ancient Christians, something of a spiritual roadmap that we could follow. And so I'm going to close with that roadmap. But first, a fun fact. Next slide. Did you know that the same Greek word pathos means passion, strong feeling, emotion, also suffering? Emotion equals suffering. Here's the roadmap through. These would be sort of the core tenets of desert spirituality. Apatheia, hesychia, agape. It's Proverbs 1. Those who listen wholeheartedly, Shema. Those who continuously listen, dwell in safety and live at ease, without the fear of evil. And the Desert Fathers of Agrius translated it this way. The one who has dispassion, apatheia, lives in stillness, hesychia, without the fear that's produced by troubling thoughts. Apatheia means passionlessness, neutrality, freedom from the passions. Hesychia is the state of rest, the stillness of heart, where the soul and God are one. And agape is the free and conscious choice to love regardless of cost. Yeah, Corey, you want to come up? Mm. Mm. Mm-hmm. It all has to do with presence, Kellen says, with learning to clear the path out to the heart, to this inner room, the sanctuary. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Clear the space. Yeah. Thank you. I'm going to close with this. This style of prayer is meant to reveal that the only barrier between ourselves and God is our pathological attachment to the stories that we tell ourselves about our separateness and our passionate attempts to heal a wound that isn't actually real. Prayer is the place where we learn to stop running and finally face the wound. Prayer is where we learn to take responsibility for the damage that's been done through our thoughts and our actions and anything that originated from this place of wounding. Prayer is where we learn to accept and forgive ourselves and our circumstances and God, and ultimately to forgive reality for being what it is. And this actually is agape love. I always thought agape love had more of like a 1968 Summer of Love thing. Like it's this universal love that we tap into that's unchanging, and it isn't what agape actually is. Agape love is conscious love. Agape love means basically I've considered all the facts and I'm still voting yes. Having considered the facts and in the freedom of Christ, choosing to dispassionately love all of it. Oh man, we'll open the communion table up and ask Corey to play a tune that he wrote a while ago. You can play that song? Yeah. It's a tune that Corey wrote a while ago that I think pretty beautifully communicates the same thing. So, as Corey and the birthday girl play, you can stay where you are. You can come up and receive the elements. I'll dismiss us at the end of the tune. Let you take it from here.
I forgive my father, for I know now no one knows what they are doing. And God is just the universe, patiently reworking what we ruin. Human nature bends its ear and turns its back against the fears that tend to underwrite our questions. Circle in the suspension, Are we born just to die? And left the whole time wondering why the world is full of suffering. What makes it all worthwhile? Are we given just to take? Has it been a big mistake? 'Cause if someone made up all of this, I wanna ask them why. I forgive my mother, for I know now every vanity is a promise. Spirit is the lifelong dirty work of learning to be honest. The infant whines and takes the nip, into the wheel of death she slips. No wonder then we always start off crying, all together too tired of trying. Are we born just to die, and left the whole time wondering why the world is full of suffering? What makes it all worthwhile? And are we given just to take? Has it been a big mistake? 'Cause if someone made up all of this, I wanna ask them why. Would you call us out to walk upon the water and fill the sea with monsters and waves? Praise the God who listens. Praise the God who saves. Praise the God who listens. Praise the God who saves. I forgive myself, for I know now that desire burns down slowly. And time's a cosmic river that we measure to make sense of where we're going. And all of our collected egos grit their teeth and beg for freedom subtly in the form of our discomfort, until we learn the point is loving one another. We'll be born just to die and spend our small lives wondering why we cause each other's suffering. What makes it all worthwhile? Are we given just to take? Has it been a big mistake? 'Cause if someone made up all of this, I'd wanna ask them why. It is well with my soul. It is well with my soul.
here for as long as you'd like, as always. If you got kids, you should probably go pick them up. They're a bit understaffed back there this morning. Stay as long as you'd like. Leave when you feel it's time. And when you do go, do so in the peace of our Lord. Love y'all.